You know, deep in the Amazon rainforest, there's a kind of wisdom that predates all of our modern science by millennia. Today, we're going to explore the knowledge of its indigenous guardians and what it can teach us, what it has to teach us about saving our planet.
So, let's start with this one powerful question. Think about it. As the lungs of the Earth face all these incredible threats, what if the traditional knowledge of its oldest inhabitants holds the very blueprint for its survival, and maybe, just maybe, ours too?
All right, first things first, let's meet the guardians at the very heart of this story. We're going to be focusing on a collection of peoples, often referred to as the 7 indigenous groups. Now, it's really important to note, this isn't some ancient classification. It's more of a modern way to help us understand 7 of the most prominent groups central to the Amazon story. And here they are: the Yanomami, the Kayapo, Ashaninka, Yagua, Saturemwe, Bora, and Wayapi. Every single one of these names represents a totally unique culture, a distinct language, and a really sophisticated way of life that was developed in perfect sync with the world's largest rainforest. And while they face a lot of the same challenges, believe me, they are anything but a single entity.
And that diversity? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into next. Because to truly appreciate their wisdom, you have to understand that we're talking about this incredibly rich and varied tapestry of human experience. This is not a monolith.
Okay, so take a look at this. This gives you just a little snapshot of how incredibly diverse these groups are. You've got the Yanomami, who live in these huge circular communal houses called shabonos. Now compare that to the Yagua, who are traditionally nomadic foragers moving in small bands all through the forest. And then you have the Kayapo. They're master horticulturalists who practice this really sophisticated kind of agriculture. These are completely different ways of life, and all of them are perfectly adapted to thrive in the exact same forest.
And that diversity, it runs deep, defining their spiritual lives too. The Kayapo, for instance, perform these vibrant body paint ceremonies to honor forest spirits. And then you have the Saturemwe, who are famous for this unbelievably intense rite of passage, where young men have to endure the stings of bullet ants to prove they're ready for adulthood. These aren't just old traditions, they're powerful expressions of their deep, deep relationship with nature.
But this rich cultural world has been under threat for centuries. To really get a handle on the challenges these communities are up against today, we have to look back at a long and honestly often brutal history of contact with the outside world.
For centuries, these groups lived in a state of balance. But then the 16th century happened, bringing devastating new diseases from European contact. Fast forward to the 19th century rubber boom, it was absolutely catastrophic, enslaving groups like the Bora. By the 20th century, the pressure just shifted to forced assimilation, as governments started to see their cultures as roadblocks to progress.
And all of that historical pressure, well, it's just evolved into the threats of today. Illegal gold mining, corporate agriculture, land grabbing. These are the new front lines of the battle. And if that wasn't enough, on top of all of it, these communities are facing global problems like climate change and diseases like malaria, which are often brought in by those illegal miners. And this makes the impact devastatingly clear. This isn't some abstract threat we're talking about. It's about poisoned rivers. The mercury from illegal gold mining contaminates the fish. It contaminates the water that groups like the Wayapi have relied on for generations. It is a direct assault on their food, their health, their entire way of life.
But here's the thing. Amidst this siege, this is where we find that very wisdom we came here to explore. Because this isn't just a story about survival, it's about a sophisticated, time-tested knowledge of how to live sustainably.
The contrast couldn't be more stark. It's night and day. On one side, you have sustainable indigenous practices. The Ashaninka use a slash and mulch technique that actually puts nutrients back into the thin rainforest soil, making it richer. The Kayapo use these small, controlled burns to strategically manage the forest and encourage new growth. And on the other side? Well, that's the alternative. Deforestation, polluted rivers, and just destroyed habitats. 2 completely different worldviews, with drastically different outcomes.
And the results really do speak for themselves. Look, this isn't just some romantic, feel-good idea. Studies have actually shown that this traditional ecological knowledge, this deep generational understanding of the ecosystem, is incredibly effective. In a lot of cases, lands managed by indigenous groups are better preserved and have more biodiversity than officially protected national parks right next door. Think about that.
So, where does all of this lead? It leads to a fight. These groups are not passive victims of history, not at all.
They are active, they are resilient, and they are getting more and more organized in the struggle for their lands, their culture, and their future.
And look at how they're fighting back. It's strategic, it's innovative, they're organizing, like the Ashanenka, creating unions to protect their forests. They're innovating. The Kayapa are using GPS technology to map their own territory and monitor illegal logging. And they are advocating, taking their fight all the way to the highest courts and political arenas.
And here's the best part, it works. Their advocacy gets real results. The 1980s were a huge turning point. After a long, hard struggle, the Kayapo won a major legal victory, securing official protection for a vast territory along the Singu River. This was proof that organized, persistent advocacy can lead to real, tangible success.
And that brings us right back to where we started. Their fight, at its core, is for their homes, their rivers, their right to exist. But as we watch them combine this ancient knowledge with modern tools to protect one of the most vital ecosystems on Earth, you really have to ask yourself, is their wisdom not just their hope, but maybe one of the last best hopes for all of us?